This is Kathy from Gadget Top 321, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at DeAtramentis Sherlock Holmes. I'll be testing it in a variety of pins and nib sizes ranging from a Pilot Extra Fine to a 1.5 stub nib, and I am going to begin with the Extra Fine nib in my Pilot 78G Plus. This is a stainless steel nib. And when I get done with these writing samples, I want to compare this to Oxford Blue and see if they are the same ink or if there is a difference. Alright. This is very nice. Even though this is an extra fine nib and just sharp as a needle, it's very pleasant writing on the page if you have a light hand with it. And the legibility of it with this, deep midnight blue, this is nice, very usable. If you have like a Jibun Techo or a Hobonichi like this, and I think the Hobonichi Weeks has even smaller grids than this, just slightly smaller. Alright, next I have a Pilot Pereira with a stainless steel fine nib. Also very nice. In fact, when I first got this Pereira, the first time I inked it up was either with Sherlock Holmes or Oxford Blue. These two inks behave very similarly. They both perform really well in fine nibs, glide across the page, very nice. Next, I've got a Pilot Custom 74 with a fine 14 karat nib. This nib lays down more ink, so it is noticeably smoother than the first two. I love that combination of pen and ink. That's just fantastic all around, good for anything. Note-taking, journaling, anything where you're going to be writing a lot. Next, I have a Quebeco Percayo all black with a medium nib. Now, I don't normally prefer, bold blue inks like this, blue or black in a medium nib. This is very smooth, very pleasant to use. If I had a situation where I was needing to write bigger, this is just a very, very nice. That medium nib just glides across the page. Next, I have a Pilot Metropolitan with a cursive medium nib. Now this nib can be hit or miss. If an ink is kind of dry, this nib will be unpleasant, but with this ink, it is just very smooth. And like I just mentioned with the nib above, I don't prefer broad, wider nibs with blue or black inks, dark blue or black, but with this cursive medium, it kind of works. I prefer the cursive medium over just the regular medium. I just like how it gives a little character to your handwriting. Next, I have a Nemesign with a 0.6 stub nib. Very nice, smooth. And finally, I've got my Jinhao X750 with a 1.5 replacement stub nib. I'm curious to see if this Sherlock Holmes has the red sheen like Oxford Blue does. But I'm going to let that dry for now. And I want to take a look at some other writing samples on other papers and see how this performs. On my little ARC notebook, this is a little more absorbent paper. Everything was nice and smooth. Just as far as looks go, I didn't label these two because these two wetter nibs tend to feather and spread just a little bit. The Metropolitan, I really liked it. I put a heart beside it. I just like how it felt to write with that, and it looks nice. And same thing with the Custom 74. Now this little splatter here, I think I do these writing samples. I don't ink up the pen. I just dip them in ink. And I must have had a little bubble on the underside of the feed, because when I went to write, it's like there was just a little explosion of ink. I think the bubble popped. But the Custom 74 was nice, but it was just a little too wet for this paper. I liked the Pereira on this absorbent paper. And even the extra fine performed nicely, was pleasant to use. On my Rhodia paper, the two fine nibs, fine and extra fine, the readback on them was a little, the legibility was a little less than I prefer. And on good paper, I prefer the Custom 74. It just puts down a lot of ink. It's just fun to use, and it just looks so good. I also liked the Metropolitan with the cursive medium nib on this one. Let's see if we can see any sheen. No, it's just looking nice and just a velvety blue, consistent blue, no shading. On my 20-pound copy paper, look how quickly it soaks in. On, let's see, on the Rhodia, it kind of floats on top of the paper, even on the extra fine. But on this copy paper, it just immediately soaks in. But surprisingly, the extra fine and the fine were nice. And I think the reason that is, excuse me, it wasn't scratchy, just like on the other papers. Excuse me just a minute. Had a little frog in my throat. But there's just enough spread with it soaking into the paper that it helps with the legibility. But there's not so much ink that it looks feathery and unpleasant. So on poor quality paper, the extra fine and fine, I really liked. And that's a good ink to have just for everyday use at work. And on my Leuchtturm, here I've got, let's see, I've got my Oxford Blue and my Sherlock Holmes right beside each other. You can't hardly tell the difference. And on the Oxford Blue, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in this lighting today. It's kind of cloudy. But I can see a halo of red sheen on the really heavy parts. And I've got some really heavy parts here, but it is just a flat blue. I'm not seeing any sheen on the Sherlock Holmes. So it's looking like if you like a little bit of sheen, go with the Oxford blue. If you don't like sheen, go with the Sherlock Holmes. They perform pretty much the same aside from that. They're both just awesome inks for everyday use. And now on my Tomoe River paper, I'm seeing just a little bit of red sheen. Let me flip over here to the Oxford blue. So I don't know if y'all will be able to see it, but there's Sherlock Holmes and there's Oxford blue. Now Oxford blue, if you look at the ink smears, looks like it might be a little more saturated. Yeah. And that is probably why the Oxford blue, you're getting more sheen, because it is a little more saturated. All right. So that's the difference between those two. All right. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.